the Online Safety Act is a great thing, and only people who are evil and wish to harm you and others would disagree with that. Asmongold, probably. In any case, the Online Safety Act. What's the matter, my friends? Are you not willing to give away your freedoms, your rights, your everything for a little bit of that sweet, sweet safety? And what kind of safety, you may ask? Well, not the one that protects you from the consequences of our greatest strength and ally, but the consequences of you obviously being a bigot. Asmongold, probably, once again, by the way. Sad, really sad. But in any case, a Valve is currently getting a little bit of, well, problems from the UK. And that's really not good. But they're currently at least kind of fighting it, so there is a chance.
A new law has just made Steam lock adult games behind credit cards. Not age verification, not an ID check, but credit cards. And here's the real irony of this story. The very same payment companies that forced Steam to change their rules are actually now Valve's solution to a fun bit of UK regulation that everyone on the internet has heard about, the Online Safety Act. And of course, people have heard about it because it doesn't just impact the UK. These are global companies. But there's a problem. 32% of UK adults don't.
Well, to be absolutely fair, these companies just need to do that in the UK, which is. Now, this is on a technical level, by the way. The more you know about the world, right? Every company is already doing their regulations slightly different in different countries, okay? Every country has some form of unique law or application of law that the companies need to play around and be not damaged by. Because again, the countries don't fucking care. If you can do business in a country, but you need to abide by those countries' rules, okay? Against popular belief that seemingly a lot of Americans have, 10 out of 10, my American friends. It's kind of hilarious. But the world does not need to live by American rules everywhere, which is, I know, sounds kind of wild, but it's true. And that has never been the thing, but recently it's been kind of a hot button topic of discussion, which is kind of funny.
Have credit cards. That means a lot of Steam users are now locked out completely. Now, Valve says that they've met their legal obligations, but have they? Because they've certainly went a way towards doing that. But we tested them, and it's a much messier picture than it seems, to the point where, on an unverified account, we've been able to access content that, well, it seems, per the Online Safety Act, we shouldn't be able to. And look, once fully in, this law carries fines of 10%.
Isn't this like a VPN?
Of global revenue. For a company like Valve, that is billions. Now, personally, I don't want to see Valve get screwed by an impractical draconian law that I don't support, that's now leading to the UK wanting to basically find a way of dealing with VPNs. That means that this story matters. This is a law that inconveniences users, it opens up loads of privacy risks, and frankly, it's just not practical, and it may even make...
Now, do we believe this, by the way? Because Bellier's not gonna get arrested for wrong thing anytime soon, okay? He is in compliance before the compliance existed.
Make things worse for online safety, because it will force things underground. And that means we've got to talk about it. Valve says they're complying with the UK's Online Safety Act as of August 29th. The Steam support pages now explain the new reality to us, and when we go there, we see that UK users must undergo, quote, age assurance to access mature content games and their community hubs. What does that mean? Well, it means age verification. And we always knew that this was coming, but as we pointed out when the law took effect, Steam quite simply was not ready for compliance. Now, do you remember their old system? It was a tick box whenever you made your account to confirm that you were over the age of 13. And keep that
absolutely based. I was 18 when I was 9. And below. It was a great time, boys. It was a great time. And then someone decided, wait a minute, does this actually... No, it worked perfectly, okay?
That number in mind, because we're going to come back to it. They also blocked direct messaging until you had spent $5 on the platform, but of course, gift cards can actually bypass that. Adult content filters were on by default for new accounts, but obviously anyone could easily opt out of that. None of these measures were solidly compliant with the law. Valve knew they would draw attention the very moment a kid accessed something that they shouldn't. I'm sure you can imagine, as an example, the Daily Mail headlines that would animate the government. Here's the thing, Steam already had one advantage for this.
As far as I'm concerned, the Daily Mail is a satire site at this point.
Already had users' payment card information, and the UK government had approved that as a form of verification. So it's no surprise how Valve decided to solve that problem. Credit card verification is the policy, and credit card ownership is limited to 18-year-olds in the United Kingdom. Now, Ofcom have confirmed that it's a, quote, highly effective age verification method, and they say that among all age assurance mechanisms reviewed by Valve, that this process preserves the maximum degree of user privacy. Now, you can already register a card to your Steam account, and that means that to implement this rule, no new user data gets stored. If there is a verification issue, Steam says that you should talk to your bank first, and after you've done that, then talk to them. But they also suggest something quite interesting. The risk of running up a credit card bill should, quote, act as an additional deterrent to account sharing. It's a bit weird, and to some users, parts of this seem a little bit ridiculous. They've got 2-decade-old Steam accounts, so why would they need age verification now? Their Steam account is literally old enough to be of age. A simple answer, Valve is not a trustworthy source to the UK government. Now, others wonder why Valve don't follow the likes of Discord, Reddit, or Nexus mods. Those platforms are using services like Yoti or KID to scan IDs or faces to
all of those platforms are incredibly gay.
Do verification, and they're doing that for a reason. Here's why. It is about what each system allows. So Discord has got 3 verification states. Unverified.
I haven't done this, by the way. What the hell?
Teen, which is between the ages
I think I haven't.
of 13 and 18, and of course, adult. Basically, they need the granularity. Discord wants to keep under 13s as an audience, whilst of course also protecting them legally and being compliant with this law. But Valve aren't doing that. They've created a binary system. Either you access all content, or mature content gets blocked. That's basically it. Now, this approach was probably faster and cheaper for Valve to implement versus integrating a third-party provider and, having to strike up business with a new vendor. Plus, there is the sort of poetic justice here that it is the very same credit card companies that pushed Valve to change their rules that they are now.
You know what's actually wild about credit card payment providers? It's the fact that those companies are on the stock market, and they are actively going against their shareholders in this regard by making less money. Them losing business with Valve means they make less money. I know, shocking, right? And they just continue to go with this. Why the hell are payment card process providers saying that, oh, you should completely throw ethics out the window, make us money? Like, why is that not happening? That's strange. It's almost like I'm right when I have said for, literally years, that the people who are your shareholders don't actually fucking matter one bit, okay? Unless there's someone who owns a lot of your shares, even in those cases, most of the time, they can't actually impact what the company does unless they control it. But, these things don't matter. A line must go up is true, but not because the shareholders fucking demand it. The shareholders demand it, but in reality, there's absolutely, almost no real way that the shareholders can enforce any of their power upon a company. Sure, they can sue. They can sue about breach of fiduciary duty, aka the duty of companies to make them money. But these companies always have the ability just to say, oh, the thing that we're doing is going to make more money in the later portion. Not now. This is not an instant thing. This is for the future. So all of our decisions are going exactly in line with fiduciary responsibility. And that's wild. So yeah, these credit cards providers just prove that everything is a bunch of bullshit like always.
Handling user verification for Valve. So hey, I guess Valve's kind of making their opponents work for them, and that's a little bit satisfying. But there is, as always, an asterisk to this. Does it actually work? It doesn't. We kind of broke it immediately. So we tested this ourselves. We used a Steam account with a debit card linked and a PayPal linked. Neither of those are acceptable to the UK regulator, and both can be accessed by under 18s. That means there's no credit card attached. And the result is, on first glance, what you'd expect. This account can no longer access mature content games. If you try to click on a mature game store page, you will be blocked, and you'll get a new page with a link to add a credit card and TLDR of why you'd have to do this. Now, one good thing, though, through this, is it doesn't seem to be based on user tags, and sadly this does mean that, as an example, you can't mass tag Hello Kitty Island Adventure as BDSM, for a laugh. So it's altogether more troll-proof like this, and the ratings are likely part of the content questionnaire that all developers have got to fill out in Steam. We've talked about this before with age ratings, and the rule broadly succeeds at its goal. Unverified accounts cannot access mature content games, the very games that sparked these concerns. But those games get to stay on Steam. Valve gets to comply with the legal requirements, but there's a little problem. The account that we made can actually access mature 18+ rated games. Which, isn't really what was kind of intended. Baldur's Gate 3, Agony, and Hatred are all available without verification. So this new system doesn't act like, say, a shop clerk checking your ID before you go to buy Call of Duty, at least not currently. Without verification, you can't access games like Honey Pop or the unrated version of Agony. Anything explicitly framed as mature content is blocked, but obviously there are
a modern-day tragedy, indeed.
Some gray areas. Actually, it does get a little bit more dicey for Valve, because the store pages are blocked. As it turns out, that is not enough. The rough edges of this very rushed implementation are pretty damn clear here. So adult only is still a genre category on Steam, and our test account had opted in to seeing mature content generally. So basically, this unverified account can still access that genre page on the store. And do you know what that means? Auto-playing trailers. With, shall I say, slapping meat. Screenshot galleries that appear whenever you hover over game titles, all of which can be incredibly not.
That sounds like a bug. Why is Billiard being so happy that he's creating problems for Steam? I mean, one of the things that I am currently suspecting about the Online Safety Act, it's not only obviously a surveillance tool in reality, but it's also a tool that the UK wants to use to fine, just because they can, a lot of companies around the world, because they need more money, because, I mean, the 5-star hotels are pretty expensive, if you know what I'm saying.
Safe for work. And, well, you've browsed around that tag, you don't need your imagination to think about why. Now, you still can't reach the actual store pages, because those are blocked, but the content is still visible in Steam's ecosystem. But for Valve, it actually gets a bit worse. You can install demos for these games if the install demo button appears on the main genre or featured pages. And you might remember that tool that Steam created for Steam Next Fest, where you could easily install demos without having to click through onto the store page. Well, that feature, which honestly is quite good, it's very convenient, I think we're all in favor of doing the things that we want with less clicks. Sadly, that feature could now get Steam in trouble with how it is currently implemented, because if unverified accounts can still access adult games this way, then regulators may have a problem with it. And, well, they do seem to have a problem with quite a lot these days. And we haven't even addressed the bigger issue here. Steam only blocked access to mature content games and discussion areas, but the Online Safety Act also regulates how people talk to each other to protect kids. Now, Steam's existing policies on direct messages, forums, and user-posted content, those are not changing under the new rules, and that's where things get dicey, because Steam's existing policies on DMs, forums, and user-posted content aren't changing under these rules. So right now, in theory, an unverified user can still access parts of Steam with content about bullying, coercion, and drug advocacy that is illegal in the United Kingdom. So, you could go onto a TF2 server and Maybe somebody plays a voice clip that says, "Smoke weed every day." Bam! The feds come through your door. Not exactly, but you get the point. Then there's the wider conversation. What if you simply don't have a credit card? Remember, 32% of UK adults don't have a credit card, and those people often have good reasons. Some are protecting
That's pretty insane. Like, are they all poor?
themselves from financial risk. Yes, you could just say, be responsible with your credit, Fivehead, and that's fair enough, but if it's still a
Just don't get a credit card.
struggle, not having a credit card is fairly useful. Just like if you want to help yourself sticking in your diet, maybe don't load your pantry full of chocolate bars, right? You get the point. But for those people, well, they're now cut off here. They either engage with that financial model or they
Okay, listen, considering this is the UK, like, I mean, do we care? Do we care that much? I mean, the UK has picked its path, and only death can stop it, which is kind of inevitable.
lose access to that part of Steam. And this is especially problematic given some new reports.
People signed a petition and where they said, "Oh, we don't want this," and the UK governmental body was like, we don't care." Did you think the system is actually meant to do anything, idiot? Yeah, so the UK. What can you do? There's pretty much just only violent uprisings as the options, and that's probably not happening.
These reports show that this applies to store pages for games that you already own. Now, you can seemingly keep playing your game, but you better hope that game doesn't have expansions to buy, and of course you better hope that you've already left your review, because you won't be able to access that unless you have a credit card. And this is likely just the beginning. Steam have already told users that they will be dealing with problems as they arise, so, well, all the things that I've mentioned today are probably on their mind, because as this law moves from its initial implementation to basically the various levels of enforcement that will roll out over months, Valve will very much want to avoid the fines that can come with it. And this is the kind of risk that happens when, well, you're operating a massive...
And again, the UK is going to try really, really hard to get that to 10%. How much does Valve make a year? A couple of billions, I think. That's which is, by the way, completely fucking wild. But, you know, it's a couple of billions. So this is like a zero at the end times two, which is wild.
Platform, which is what Valve does. Where we're at is that Valve is now theoretically complying with the Online Safety Act, and the government has got no plans to repeal this law. A majority of the British public supports it, unfortunately. And just like with other examples...
Wait, what? They actually support? You know what? I'm not even fucking too surprised.
Law. A majority of the British public support...
From everything you have seen and heard, do you support or oppose the recent rules requiring age verification to access websites that may contain pornographic material? Age, Great Britain adults, 4K. So, time period, YouGov. YouGov.co.uk. Don't know, 8% strongly oppose, somewhat oppose, somewhat support, strongly support. These people have no fucking idea what's actually happening. I can guarantee you this. They have no idea what this is about, what's happening, and they don't care. Again, people are like, oh, save the UK. Why? Why waste oxygen on this? You understand they're pretty much fine with this garbage, right? You understand the UK is in favor of this. Now, granted, people from the UK watching this video are probably going to be, no, I am not in favor of this, and I understand. You are not. But the average probably is. They don't even know what's happening. They don't give a shit. So there we go.
That's it, unfortunately. And just like with other examples, like say in Germany and Brazil with age restrictions, Valve will comply with the law, and that means that they are now held to the law. That also means they'll have to address any complaints against that law's standards. And we know that Valve will keep making changes to avoid more risk, because obviously, look at the fines involved with this law. And reports are already suggesting that they're telling adult game makers something new. that they can no longer use early access as a business model. Because again, early access means the contents of the game, well, can be changing. So if a dev slips in a few nips, oh dear, now the game would be in violation. That's obviously frustrating to those developers who maybe would want to use the early access business model. And it's not like
True, but this actually also applies to just non-early access things if you have a demo, I guess.
I'm blaming Valve for this. They're tightening their grip because they basically have to, and they also want to avoid any further challenges from payment processors. So they got the payment processor problem, they've got problems with
Oh god, like the payment processors weren't enough. The UK also needs to put on their autism hat and start spurging around. I mean, it is what it is. It's not gonna change. It's the UK. It's dead on water. Get the pun, dead on water. It's on water. Anyway, that was Billiard News. 10 out of 10. Bye.